Hello, and thank you once again for joining me with this edition of Faith to Live By. I'm Pam Christian, your host for this weekly program, where I seek to help us consider current events from a biblical and prophetic worldview, so we as God's children know how He wants us to respond. The past 2 weeks, I had Prophet Barry Wunsch, known as the Canadian Hammer, as my guest. Those 2 episodes have been among the highest downloaded in their first 7 days in comparison to all my podcasts beginning in July 2020. If you didn't hear them, you'll want to. The link is in the show notes. They are truly informative and reassuring podcasts for these very days. And I'm pleased to say some of you honored my sincere request to hear from you. But before I recognize you, I first want to thank the faithful that have encouraged me over the years, which include Larry and Rita, Carmelita and Ed, and Sue. Thank you so much for your support and encouragement. And for those of you who recently reached out, I give my heartfelt appreciation to Darla, Kathy, Charmaine, and Danielle. This job really is isolated. I work by myself doing all the research, writing, producing, recording, and editing week after week as your advocate for truth that mainstream media is not providing. You really are the reason I spend about 30 hours a week, and so far covering about 95% of all expenses from our family budget. This really needs to be a listener-supported program, which includes my request for your prayers and encouragement. It is hard for me to believe I have as many listeners as I do with such little interaction. So again, I want you to know I truly welcome your emails. My address is faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com. I'm just like you. I need encouragement and feedback to know my work is benefiting others, and knowing there are goods and services you need, I really have gone to great lengths to vet any and all sponsors so you can be assured of the quality and the service you'll receive. I'll share more about that later, but for now, I want to get right into today's program. My guest today is Dr. Scott Young, who is referred to me by Derek Johnson. If you've listened before, then you know Derek is a retired military who has a unique perspective and ability to decipher military communications, and who has taken time to research and read many governmental legal documents, allowing him to encourage us about the behind-the-scenes efforts that are underway to defeat the cabal and those who want a one-world government. Dr. Scott is another one who has unique insights based on his personal, extensive study of the Bible and many other world events. Dr. Scott Young's career started with a desire to be a teacher, but and this is his own words, morphed into getting his doctorate in audiology. He's also earned a bachelor's degree in English, a minor in deaf education, and a master's degree in audiology. His passion as an educator returned in teaching in churches and conferences on the end times, apologetics, and the death and resurrection of Jesus from a medical viewpoint. With his interest in World War II and end-time events described in the Bible, he has diligently researched and written fiction and nonfiction, with more than 17 books now available on his website. A shift occurred years ago when he met a man who would become his mentor and friend on a new topic, NESARA, which stands for National Economic Security and Recovery Act, which put in motion a zeal for researching NESARA. Dr. Young now creates YouTube videos for his clinic regarding hearing issues, but his other channel is devoted to NESARA and hope in the end times. Some videos are education-based to teach aspects of NESARA, and others interview patriots and experts in related areas such as military law, macroeconomics, banking, child trafficking, and the end times. Dr. Young is considered a NESARA expert and speaks at national conferences. Dr. Scott's websites and more are available in the show notes. My full 2-part interview with Dr. Scott takes us through an overview to better understand the workings of the cabal or deep state as influenced by the enemy, Satan, current world events being played out in the battle of good and evil, and the end times as we seek to understand modern day and biblical prophecy. I'll offer updates on related current events after part 1 of my interview with Dr. Scott. Here it is for you now. All right, Dr. Scott, I am really pleased to have you on the program. I've already told my listeners a little bit about you, but I would like to start off by asking you, what is it you have your doctorate in?
Well, my dad would say underwater basket weaving, but I like to talk about it in audiology. So but mine's an audiology. And people go, what is that? And I always kind of say it's like optometry, but it's just in clinical stuff in the ears. So it means that I had to study from the neck up of everything physical. It's practical stuff from the neck up. And so we're kind of an expert in the ears. But I have degrees in English and education, and I have a deaf ed minor. So I have a really weird set of background. And I have, a lot of writing background as well.
Well, what I've learned from you in our time of getting acquainted before our interview today is that when you are interested in a subject matter, you do beyond a deep dive. I mean, you go to the center of the earth kind of a dive, and you exhaust everything you can get your hands on so that you can make sure you have as much information as possible to make an intelligent decision or conclusion. And this is why I wanted to have you on the program. I haven't met anybody who has gone to as much of an in-depth study as you have specific to the book of Revelation and what we call in Christendom eschatology, which is just a study of the end times, nor have I met anybody who is able to explain the existence of the cabal and how what's going on with our current events, with our current world events, with what we are calling the cabal or the deep state, the one world order effort. I've not met anybody who's been able to bridge the two. And in my brief conversations with you, you have actually affirmed some of my suspicions. They're not studied. I'm not studied like you are. That's why I wanted to bring you on, so my audience could hear from you some of the things I have already brought to their attention, asking them to study further. And we can, from you, perhaps draw some conclusions, some confident conclusions that will prevent us from living in fear in these very days. So thank you so very much for being willing to be part of our program.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I also believe we have learned to have an authority-based logic, which means, hey, if you're a doctorate, then whatever comes out of your lips is truth. And yet there was a professor, I was allowed to call him Norm. This is in my undergrad with English. And one of the few guys that was allowed to call him Norm. I don't even know what his last name was. I can't remember. And when he was going through his graduate degree, he was a garbage guy. And when he was talking about logic, he would utilize this garbage man response. And so a lot of people, when they come up and they say, like, what kind of doctor are you? Mm-hmm. I love it when they do that. And I'm going, so if I'm a garbage man, but I give you good logic, would that matter? And I think your audience needs to be able to walk into a room and say, listen, if I don't have an MD degree, are you not going to listen to me?
Exactly.
And so we need to have the people of the world research what they believe, which is called veritas level research. And if they can walk into a situation and be able to apologetically argue something, hey, man, you should be able to listen to them.
Absolutely. And I've shared with my audience before that I'm an apologist and I'm also a charismatic. And I think we all need to be that. We need to use our brains. God's given us our brains. He even says in Isaiah 1:18, come now, let us reason together. God wants us to use our brains. He also wants us to be sensitive in our spiritual selves, our spiritual reality. But it needs to be a blend of the two, not an emphasis on one over the other, which is, again, something I appreciate about you. So let's get into what I really want to focus on today. A lot of people are living in fear because they see what's going on with the one world order effort. And it appears that the one world order effort, that the people who are involved in that are actually gaining, that they are seeing the victory and that we are losing. And I have said to my audience again and again, that is not the case.
Right.
It is absolutely not the case, not only in reality, if you know how to dig and see what's truly going on, which this podcast is all about. It's also not the case when you understand the Bible, the Word of God. And the Word of God is given by God to reassure His people and to alert those who have yet to receive Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, to be in a right relationship with God, to alert them that there is a way to be restored into a right relationship with God. It is their choice. And what we are dealing with right now, as I've shared with my audience, is a timeline where the effort of the enemy has been to accelerate God's plans, and the enemy wants to take his place of prominence and dominance much earlier than God has ever planned, and he's not going to get away with it. So with this, Scott, I'd like to turn it over to you and have you reassure my audience on all these points I've just made.
Yeah. So, I mean, he wants to hijack. We didn't understand what the word hijacking was until we really saw hijacking from the 70s on, right? Remember, when a plane takes off from Denver to New York, it has a projected flight path, right? And they have to file it with the FAA, and they have a particular distance and height and whatever. And then when a hijacker gets into the cockpit and they adjust the path, right? Then they're going to take it over and they're going to make them land in Chicago or whatever. And they're going to ask for millions of dollars or kill people or whatever they're trying to do. Well, in essence, that's what Satan wants to do, is he wants to hijack the path of God. But remember, Jesus writes the book because he's the writer of the whole thing. Go read the book of John, and Jesus exists before the foundation of the earth. So he exists in the firmament time frame. There is an equation I love in John 1 of Jesus, the truth, the Word, and the Father that all are equated to one. And so that is really super important. And yet Satan's always trying to hijack it. And so the Bible is replete with this hijacking process. And the answer is there's nothing they can do. And there is a conversation that a lot of the patriots are utilizing. It's by something called the Q movement. And the Q movement are talking about this conversation of nothing can stop what's coming. The Q movement is a military people. These are big military genius. And some people have misunderstood who those guys are. Those are big, deep, dark, secreted group. These are top level secret group of people. And they're all generals, okay? And they basically go, we're taking you out. This is happening. And essentially that point, there's nothing you can do about it. It's because these are chess masters.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know, by the way, that chess masters within 7 moves know who's going to win? And if you're on the 8th move of a chess game, they already know who's going to win, but you can't stop a game. They can knock over the king, but they're going to lose anyway. See, the cabal right now is doing every desperate move. Did you guys see Biden falling all over in the Air Force Academy? He fell like 2 times. He made a speech that was blithering idiot stuff. Kamala Harris says the most blithering idiot stuff. They don't have the smart people left. They got the dumbest people left. And this is what you do, is you take them out until you got the last dumb people. And we're just letting them sit up there and think that they're running the world. And the reality is they've got nothing left.
Okay, let me jump in here, Dr. Scott. You're saying that they've got nothing left. So I'm hearing you say that this effort by these high-level generals to counter what the cabal has been doing has been going on for quite a period of time, and they are reduced now to just a few blithering idiots, to use your term.
Yeah. I'm going to put it to you another way. I want you to think about this. I want you to go backward in time and realize that one of the greatest battles in the history of the world is, and I'm a minor historian. All my life I studied, World War II. D-Day is one of my favorite battles to study. It took 3 years to put in place, but it took 36 hours for them to get off the beach. Realize how much time it took to get everything set up. And it only took 36 hours to get off the beach. And the reality is that's where we are right now. This battle, frankly, has been going on since 2016. And we are at the last vestiges of it. That's why it feels so desperate right now. We are all suffering in this circumstance, but it's a very underground war. And everyone looks around and goes, man, can it just stop? Can I just get off the train? And the reality is they are taking them out, and you guys don't realize this. I'm getting information by people that you'd be surprised about. The military are winning, and you don't understand there's so much stuff that you're not seeing. There's CGI, and there is stuff that the media is not telling you.
You're right.
They're such liars. There's so much CGI. There's so many.
Okay, now CGI means computer graphic imaging. Okay.
Yeah. And there is so many masks that these idiots are wearing. You guys think that you're seeing real images on TV or that Joe Biden is. Listen, I'm an ear specialist. Okay. I can prove to you 13 ways to Sunday that's not the real Joe Biden. His ear is not the same guy that was back in the early 2000s.
There's actually been several photographs where we can make comparisons, and
it's because his earlobe is not the exact same one. And I'm an ear specialist. Okay, so trust me. And it's an actor. It's a mask that the guy's wearing.
Okay, now let me ask you something. Let me jump in. Let me ask you something.
Sure.
If this person who's playing Joe Biden is an actor, and you just referred to him as a blithering idiot, is he working for the white hats or the black hats?
I don't know. I don't know which way it is. And frankly, we won't really know until the end of this thing. I mean, it's annoying as all get out. Trust me, it's annoying. I hate it. I hate every minute of this. And at times, you're going to be tired of this. And you need to get outside and walk in the grass and just get away from it. Trust me, I find ways of watching a game on TV or something like that, sporting game on TV, just to get my mind off things or whatever. Walk in the grass, play with the dogs, whatever, just to get away from things. But I will tell you that this is a daily, weekly military exercise that's going on to take out the cabal.
Okay, now let me ask you another question.
Sure.
If we've got this long-term plan to take out the cabal, and you said it started in 2016, I think it could have been long before then.
Probably.
I go back to JFK and his speech of wanting to take out the secret societies. And frankly, what he's pointing out is when things are done in secret, there's already an admission of guilt.
Right.
Unless you're fighting against the cabal. So that's the thing we need to understand. But what we have with the generals, the top-level generals, and this whole effort to right the wrongs, to restore our nation, to restore righteousness worldwide, is also taking a deep, deep toll. And this is what you were getting at, a deep toll on humanity.
Right.
There's a point of saturation. There's a point of cognitive dissonance.
Exactly.
There's a point where people can't take anymore. And we've got to be very close to that collectively worldwide at this point.
Right. And that's what I will say to you right now. So this is a financial / military operation. And that's why this little piece called NESARA, National Economic Stabilization Reformation Act, is that what it is a financial election fraud issue. What we're trying to accomplish in here is, I say we, but the white hats, and I call them the anti-cabal, the good guys in essence. What they're trying to do is take out the bad guys. See, what Trump did when he got in office in 2017 is that he went to all of the nations. I'll just give an example. He went to India with Modi, and he met with those nations, and he showed them each nation. He said, I've got all the goods on each of the nations. And he said, I've got the goods on you, and we would like to help set up what's called NESARA with a G. And you would be a sovereign nation again. You wouldn't have any other nation messing with you. And we wanted you to help us take out the cabal. And every one of them signed up for it. And Russia was a big part of this. And so this Ukraine thing, fast forward to the Ukraine part, Ukraine is the sickness of the cabal. So there are 3,000 underground tunnels of child trafficking going on in all the way through Ukraine. And this is where the cabal has the last ditch effort. That's why they've been going on for 13 to 15 months or whatever exact time frame it is. The real good guys have been digging out those idiots all the way through. This is the hot part of the war to take them out. And the BRICS nations are actually NESARA because they were tired of it. And so they've already gone what's called gold-backed. The reality is that 209 nations, and what most people don't realize, they're already gone gold-backed. And so they're already in their NESARA stuff. They're kind of waiting for America to flip the switch. And once that thing happens, we're all going to be into the NESARA JASARA kind of thing, and we're going to be into that new kind of reality that happens.
Okay, now what about China? I understand China is part of BRICS, part of the NESARA, part of the JASARA.
China's part of it too, part of the JASARA stuff. And yet there's two sides of it. There's the communists in there, the bad boys in there, and there's part of the good people in there. The dragon family, that the real good people that are there, and there's the bad people in there, the Chinese communists. And by the way, they're in every nation. I mean, we're just dealing with the cabal that's in America. And then there's good military people in America. And then there's bad people in Russia, and there's good people in Russia. It's in every single nation, and they've infected every single nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is there's a point of sovereignty that needs to occur in all these nations, because the cabal wants to bring a one world government. But what Trump wanted to do, and the White Hats wanted to do, is say, no. We don't want a one world government. We don't want to have a one world currency. We wanted to have a sovereign kind of circumstance. So the NESARA stuff is not about a one world currency, is not about any of this other stuff. It's about having a sovereign nations that are happening.
Okay, now there'll be a lot of people who hear what you're saying, who want to believe what you're saying is true. And we've all been subject to mainstream media, and we've all been concerned and taken down a path, because that was the cabal's plan, was to take us down a path to control our thinking and our understanding. So what I hear you saying, and again, my job is to try to ask questions that I think my audience members would have.
Sure.
What I hear you saying is that the cabal around the world is actually represented by, I'll call them black hats, in every nation.
Right.
And then we have the white hats who are dealing with the black hats in every nation. And we are at the very end of this battle to actually see things turn in favor of what's good and right and what the majority of people in this world actually want.
Right. So think about this, though. Here's what they actually did. Here's what the black hats actually did. Here's how deep they went to infect it. They went into the universities, and they flipped the smart people, in essence, the smart people, and they flipped those. So they took over the thought university points. They took over the media.
Right.
They took over the influence of Hollywood so they could write the stories the way they wanted to write them. And then they infected over the government. And so it doesn't matter whether it's Republican, Democrat. People always talk about it. I'm like, bah humbug. It isn't Republican, Democrat anymore. They're both part of the idiot party stuff. They're on the both sides of the idol stuff. The reality is these boys are going to hope to be just in prison. Most of them are going to be in Gitmo. And here's the other part of this. There is going to be a military level of justice. See, once you sign yourself into a governmental law, what happens to you is you sign an oath to the Constitution of the United States. So if you go into a government like a mayor, let's just use a mayor, for instance, you actually sign your oath to the Constitution. And so like Pamela here, and you're listening to Pam and you're listening to Scott talk, okay? We really can't do treason unless we get our hands on secret documents and we start giving it to, Japan or whatever, I mean, but we really can't do treason, which could put us in the lineup of being on death row.
Executed.
Right. Execution, yeah. Right. But in this circumstance, if you put yourself as a congressman or whatever, you sign yourself up for that potential. Well, do you know that the Playboy Mansion is just a honeypot, and Epstein Island is a honeypot to get these idiots inside of them, and there's cameras everywhere so that they get these honeypots going, and so they get them with money and all kinds of different ways to get them so signed up into the satanic order, so they got them inside of it, and then they do everything that they want them to do. So whether it's sex, drugs,
Let me jump in. Are you saying the cabal is in charge of Epstein and Playboy Mansions and organizations like this?
Through the CIA.
Okay. And that is to, in effect, recruit people and blackmail them so that they will do their bidding.
Yeah, every time. And then if they get really deep, and I don't want to go too deep in this statement because it's really gross. But when they get too deep, they go really deep and they go really satanic.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're like me, seeking to find the truth to all things since early 2020 has been difficult. Because we don't know the whole picture, as we discover nuggets of truth, it's like putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle without having anything to guide us. We're not clear on what we're looking for, so we're just turning over every puzzle piece and fitting it in where we can. We're all still waiting for the whole picture to become visible. And the more I dig, the more disturbing it is. Yet, as I've so often shared, the catalyst for me writing my first book, Examine Your Faith, Finding Truth in a World of Lies, is what we all want to know. We are all wanting to live our lives on the basis of truth. None of us want to live our life on the basis of lies and deception. However, as Dr. Scott is sharing, we are being forced to realize that we have been lied to on every front. Dr. Scott mentioned how the cabal has intentionally dumbed down our populace through education, media, and arts entertainment. But in truth, we've been deceived on every mountain of society, which also includes religion, family, business/finance, and government. You won't want to miss next week's part 2 of this interview, where you can count on me to help you finally get a clearer picture of the whole puzzle next week and in the weeks to come. Now, about current events, I really want you to take special heed to what God has said through Julie Green with the prophetic words she posted on June 19th. God has already begun intervening in the affairs of humanity. The time of warning is nearly at its end. God has warned a storm is coming that will shake the whole earth, and in fact, it has already begun. So please use the link in the show notes to watch the entire post. Also, please make a point of viewing Mickey Willis's 3-part documentary on the Great Awakening. The most recent is The Plandemic, Part 3. The link for that is also in the show notes. And lastly, I want to bring your attention to Mike Adams' recent interview with David Sorensen of Stop World Control about the World Health Organization and their grooming of children for pedophiles. In keeping with what Dr. Scott said, that we are in the last stages of the battle, let me share the words of President Trump recently posted online from a recent speech. He stated, and I quote, "This is the final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists. We will cast out the sick political class that hates our country." End quote. And I echo the sentiments that were attached to the post, which stated, absolutely biblical. If you are listening to God and His prophets and people like me who, with the Lord's help, are bringing you truth, you can't help but see what has been brought out in the last couple of weeks. God is in control of the world. We, however, are in charge of our lives. While we all want to live our lives on the basis of truth, not everyone will. It's my earnest prayer that you will be among those who not only know the truth, but are set free by the truth, and that you experience all the hope truth provides, namely Jesus. There's so much you can do, and you are very much needed. I ask you to get involved. Learn what's really going on and get plugged into helping wherever you can, as the Lord leads you. And again, be sure to follow me on social media, where you can learn about and take action from the posts I provide there. One of the ways you can get involved is to learn how to share your faith by taking my online certificate course in apologetics. My aim is to help people learn how to not only use apologetics to share truth with others, but help other Christian leaders learn how to incorporate apologetics into their respective ministries. Learn more by using the link in the show notes. And all of my books are written to help people discover and live in life-giving truth. All my books have won multiple awards competing with traditionally published books. Use the link on my main website to see all the titles and covers, read endorsements, and more. Then, when you check out, Use the promo code TRUTH and you'll receive a 20% discount on your entire order. Next week, Dr. Scott will help us learn more about NESARA and provide us his take on where we are in the end times according to Scripture. If this podcast blesses you, and I certainly hope it does because you are the reason I work as hard as I do, would you consider partnering with me in my vision? You know my whole goal is to help people discover and live in life-giving truth and to experience all the hope truth provides. You can, and I hope you do personally, share truth with others on your own. But have you thought about how many more people you could reach by partnering with me? Help me grow this podcast, get my books into more people's hands, and talk me up to others to get me more speaking engagements and increase this podcast audience. Then together, as partners, we will be making a much greater impact than we can on our own. There are several ways you can choose to partner with me. Certainly, telling others about me and my ministry along with prayer is top of the list. There is nothing as powerful as personal endorsements or word-of-mouth referrals. Buying my books and products is another way. All of my books in the Faith to Live By series were written to help people better understand the Christian faith and how to successfully live it out. The first book is Examine Your Faith, Finding Truth in a World of Lies. The second, Renew Your Hope, Remedy for Personal Breakthroughs. And the third is Revive Your Life, Rest for Your Anxious Heart. There are two more in the series about the end times. The first one is Prepare for the Harvest, Confidence in God's End-Time Promises, written for Christians to properly understand God's plans for His people during the end times. And the other is Prepare for the Harvest, God's Challenge to the Church Today. It's written to help church leadership be ready in every way possible for the long-prophesied billion-soul harvest. Visit my website and get any or all of these books with a deep 20% discount by using the word TRUTH at checkout. I also welcome donations, but for now they're not tax deductible. However, I'm working on that, so listen in the weeks to come and you'll learn more about how you can support me through donations that will be tax deductible. Supporting the businesses I feature as affiliate partners is yet another way you can partner with me. I seek to find affiliates who can offer you goods and services you need, and I have some very exciting money-saving America First goods and services you will not want to miss out on. Newest to my affiliate list is a company I'm exceedingly excited to introduce you to. If you're like me, you're tired of paying very high prices for cable television, and you've been waiting to find just the right company who shares your values to replace your cable service. Well, I found it. It's called Q Streaming. They provide over 3,000 channels, including live TV with local stations from across the United States, U.S. networks, sports networks, movie networks, and pay-per-view events. You get all that for about half of what most cable companies charge, and there's no contract, just a monthly subscription. Using the link in the show notes, go and look around and sign up to start viewing the programs you like for a fraction of what you're paying now. All while supporting a Christian-owned and operated company that exclusively uses word-of-mouth advertising so as not to spend money on commercial advertisement that supports the woke movement. And don't forget, when it comes to your health, I also have affiliate partners Mfinity and Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack supplements. You can learn more on the affiliates page and the information in the show notes. Also, there's Operation Tomahawk, which Scott McKay started. It's a subscription program that allows you to get your household and personal care items from a company that is American-owned and operated, because we don't want to support the deep state. And regarding your finances, I want you to know about Dr. Kirk Elliott. He's a personal wealth advisor who offers free consultations to understand your financial goals and help you reach them. When you purchase my books, products, or services, or products and services from any of my affiliates, you get something you want, and at the same time, you support me. It's truly a benefit for all of us. So why not shop for yourself or to get gifts for friends and family? Your support is greatly appreciated. All affiliate partners' information is in the show notes, and I have a dedicated web page where you can learn even more, and you can hear the interviews I've conducted in the vetting process. Of course, you need to do your own due diligence to make your own decisions what to purchase, but to help you, I am researching companies and interviewing their representatives and using their products or services myself to provide you a personal recommendation. There's a link to all the interviews in the show notes. I sincerely hope you appreciate my dedication to you through these podcasts. Let me know how this podcast impacts you and what you're now doing in response to the equipping you've received through me. Again, my email is faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com. If you like the content and resource material I bring with this podcast, you'll find much more
by connecting with me through my blog. In fact, my blog has been awarded 2 unsolicited awards for Christian content. And I'm very active on social media. I can actually cover more on social media than I can with this weekly podcast. And to receive even more, please be sure to check out my dedicated podcast listeners page called Beyond the Podcast. Here's where we can connect exclusively, and you can download complimentary devotionals, resources, and more. And on that page, I also ask you to help me learn more about what you want by completing the form visible once you scroll down the page. And I would especially appreciate you subscribing to my complimentary bi-monthly e-newsletter. As a new subscriber, you can choose one of 3 gifts I offer in appreciation for your subscription. Subscribing will make you a preferred member where you will receive special announcements and offers not available to others. Depending upon where you listen to my podcast, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google, or wherever these features are available. A review helps the show reach more people, it helps spread the gospel, and helps people learn how to better apply their Christian faith. I hope you'll join me next week and tell your friends and family to listen right here on Faith to Live By, where we learn how to gain spiritual victory over life's issues. Until next week, I'm Pam Christian, asking you to remember, Christ died for us. The least we can do is live for Him.